Brilliant. All right, Brill. Okay, so we've got an hour together. Do you have any idea what you need to get out of today's session?
Um, so there is a little bit of a recap from last time, but I don't feel I've progressed as much as I perhaps hoped I would.
Okay, all right.
And I think one of your key messages last time was go back to the school, give them another chance to kind of come up with something. And they did actually invite me in for a meeting the Thursday before last. So there was three of them sitting there, but not a Senko though, which I felt was a bit weird, as that was the person I kind of was corresponding with. So it was her previous head of year, but not her current one, who I think has had some sort of job promotion in child protection or something.
Okay.
There was somebody that said they do some sort of pastoral support, kind of gave me a little kind of waffle, but I can't really get from them what it was exactly that they do. But she did make a point that she does attendance as well.
Okay.
And then this TA who's trained to do the ELSA program did sit there and sort of say, "Oh, I've been doing the ELSA program with Mia," but I know for a fact that can't be the case because she's using my phone to phone her, and all she's doing is checking in, and the call log says things like 6 minutes or something, so she's not delivering what she's saying. Then she was supposed to call up, because then they picked her up on that and said, "Why are you using the mum's phone? Why are you not doing a face-to-face on Zoom or some sort of online platform with her? You need to do that. It's important for her to see your face, and also you can then see if there's any changes in her." Oh yeah, I'll do that. So then it was meant to be 1:30 last Wednesday. Then Mia was like, she's not turned up. So I was like, okay, screenshot what you've got, so then that you know that you were there. Because this historically happened previous academic year, she didn't turn up. And I said, then they can't doubt you were there. So then I get a phone call at 2:30, which is a complete hour late from the appointment. Oh, I can't log in, blah, blah, blah. I've contacted the IT department, blah, blah, blah. And then she's like, "Oh, is Mia there that I can speak to then?" So I gave her the phone. I don't think it went down too well. Then Mia kind of let rip a bit. um, and then all she said in return was, "Oh, well done, Mia, you've got it off your chest," or something. This is just, but she's still saying she's delivering this program. Well, to me, that isn't. I mean, I've never delivered an ELSA program. I did used to be an LSA, but that was not one of my kind of areas. But as she originally scheduled an hour for this one session, then 6 minutes is not really cutting it. So she's supposed to be calling this Wednesday. Not sure what's going to happen with that, especially as it was a bit fraught last week. And I didn't sort of step up in the meeting and say, well, because she said something about when I deliver the ELSA program, and I thought, well, you're not. But I didn't really want to completely sort of say. The meeting was kind of left. They would provide her work across all subjects. So far, all so it has been nine working days it's been so far since the meetings. All she's received in the post, which was a recorded delivery, was English. That's it. Did sort of say, look, I can pick up hard copies or online if it's going to be a variety of the two. So I was surprised when it did come through the post. I thought I was prepared to pick up a wad of papers. There's been no more communication since that meeting with me regarding picking up work. They have agreed she needs an assessment, but actually, sorry, I should have maybe gone back a step on that she's down for that, but that's not on courtesy of them or anything they've done, to be honest. But they've now realised they want a speech and language assessment and an EP, but as she's not in school, how does she access that? And I thought, well, salt can come around the house. They have done for my other daughter.
Yeah.
And I would assume an EP can,
Yeah.
or at least online. I just felt it was almost like, oh, is she going to come into school for this? Kind of almost like a bit of a trick. This is what you get if you come. But they didn't quite go that far. But they felt like that there was that pause for me to then say, oh, she can come in for the assessment. Obviously didn't, because that's not the situation. So it felt like, oh yes, they were going to do, and again, it just feels like nothing's happening again. And this has kind of been the whole thing really since March. They give you a smile and everything, and it all looks positive, or you think, oh, okay, this time something's going to happen, and again, it's all just very flatline, gone quiet. So I think what you also said last time was, if they didn't really communicate, is to go straight to the LA now, and I think I've given them enough opportunity.
Yeah, that's where you're at now, isn't it? Did they remind me? I forget. I'm so sorry.
No.
What are they doing for recording her absences currently?
So it was unauthorized, and this stupid me, I actually never mentioned that in the meeting. So just going back a bit, we have spoken to a GP who actually, I have to say, this time around was really understanding. Never had any connection with this GP before, but I'll ask for her for everything. Again, she spent over half an hour on the phone regarding this. Said yes, her files can tell her that this issue's gone on since 2018. Pretty much, why has it been left 5 years? She can see that several times they were contacted. So she's written the letter that was sort of suggested regarding the number of attendances of GP visit regarding these issues, the duration. She did actually write she's not fit for school.
Amazing.
Yeah. It was a really good letter. I took a copy, gave them the photocopy. But they didn't then say, is it unauthorized? But ever since the meeting, they've been sending me messages about her. Well, one was saying that she was in school, that she was late for school, so she's got a 50-minute detention. And I just thought, no. I said, no, she will not be sitting that detention because she's not in school. Can actually see her from my own eyes, so she wasn't late. And then the other messages were like, she's not been in school today, because I thought I'd left it with them. Look, rather than every day saying the same old drill, you know the situation, you know where she is. So whether there's something they've done on their system and now it's just constantly churning
you weren't getting that before?
No.
Okay. Yeah, they've done something at their end, haven't they? They've pressed a button or something. Okay.
Yeah.
So the letter from the GP went to school, yes?
Yeah. As a hard copy as well.
And you've not had anything back on that?
No. So I think I'm going to have to at least re-ask them about these unauthorized absences.
Yeah. So I think what you need to do is go back to school and say, I've provided you with a letter from my GP that evidences that these absences need to be authorized. They should be authorized under code I for illness, mental health. Well, are we saying it's mental health? Or are we using it? You tell me. It doesn't matter if it's illness anyway, but go on.
I think so, because she is extremely anxious, and that is kind of overall, but she isn't leaving the house and things like that. So
and that's what the GP's letter kind of indicates. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you're asking for him to be authorized under code I for illness, mental health. And then how many days are we on now? 9, did you say?
9 since we've had the meeting. Yeah.
So more than 15 in total. Way more than 15.
Oh yeah, her last day in school was the 28th of February this year.
Right. So we can absolutely trigger that complaint to the LA, which is the sorry, my dog's just barking at me. Legs, I'm right here. He can't see my face. So he's like, where are you? I'm here. Lie down. Lie down. Or come here. He's confused. So yeah, basically that will trigger with the LA that she's not in school, and there's a template for it in the marble run, but let me just find it for you as well and just stick it on an email. 1 second. One sec. 15 days.
So because we cross borough again, I'm going to have to contact Croydon, which is where we live, but she goes to Lambeth.
Yeah,
Do I
it'll
just
be
contact the
Croydon.
LA, or do I CC the school in it as well?
It's up to you. You can absolutely decide which you prefer, but there's no requirement for you to send it to the school, but you can. Let me just find it. 1 sec. Templates. Might have to search for it. It's not coming up. I know I've got one. 15 days absence, medical. Might have to send it after our call, so I'm not wasting time looking for it. But I've got
Yeah.
it. It's in the marble run as well, but I was just going to send
Okay.
it to you for ease. But it's basically the 15 days absence letter that says she's missed more than 15 days of school. I would attach the doctor's letter. I would say that you provided it to the school, but and I would say that you've asked school for work, but so far you haven't received any, and that you know that she is now entitled to suitable full-time alternative provision.
Yeah.
The assessments that school are saying they're going to do, is this them making noises about an assessment to feed into an EHCP, or is it? So what have they said?
Yeah. So when I soon after school, yeah, because our last meeting was just at the end of the summer holidays, so I kind of had an email ready for them at the start of term. So he hasn't. This is the Senko hasn't denied that he will do an EHCP, but he's saying we need to wait till February, because you need to run 3 cycles of evidence or something.
That's not true.
Okay.
So he's talking about plan do review, which is basically a process that the LA will expect the school to evidence that they've looked at what's required, they've made a plan, they've done it, that hasn't worked. And some LAs and some schools say we have to do that 3 times. That's not true. That's policy,
Okay.
not law. If the legal test for an EHC needs assessment is has or may have special educational needs, tick, may require provision through an EHCP, i.e., school may need extra information about what support she needs and or extra funding to do that. Given that she's not in school and they're not doing enough to support her to be in school, that is your evidence for an EHCP. So
Okay.
I would be minded to go back to the Senko and say, I had a call today with my advocate. She's advised that we need to progress the EHCP needs assessment request as soon as possible. We're not going to wait till February. Are you going to do it, or shall I? And if you're like, oh, just say, well, I'll do it then. But you will support me, won't you? Gentle nod head. I mean, there's no way that, regardless of what their policy is, regardless of what they think they're doing, they're clearly not doing it. And
Yeah.
otherwise, you'd have some work, but you haven't even got that, have you? So
Just this English that arrived.
yeah,
just one booklet.
Yeah.
Um,
And I would ask him as well what's happening with, have you heard anything more about an EP or assault? Have they been in touch to tell you when that's happening?
no,
Okay.
they did make this comment about, which I've kind of heard anyway, about EPs are nationally on shortage, as if that's going to add to the waiting list. But my other daughter accesses EPs from Croydon, so they do have them in that borough. So that
Yeah.
felt a bit wishy-washy to me.
And the way it works with schools, I don't know if I told you this when we spoke last time, but schools normally they buy in an amount of days a term from an EP.
Okay.
So that might be another reason why he's saying February, because they might have already used all their days this term.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
So there's always more going on behind the scenes. They tell you what they think sounds acceptable, but there's always more going on.
Yeah.
And the same will probably apply to Salt. So I would just be saying to him, we're going to just push on with this. You can't reasonably wait till February. If you wait till February, it's going to be the end of the school year before you've got an EHCP.
Yeah.
And that's not, then she'll have missed, like come February, she'll have been out of school 12 months.
Yeah. Yeah. The
Not
other thing
okay.
they did offer was this online school
Right.
that then doesn't sound as great as it is when you really delve deep. It could actually only be as little as an hour or something a week. So they said they've employed someone over the summer who can deliver online classes, but it's with the intention the child gets back into school. So I did hear on the grapevine through other parents, they've got about 30 kids out of school with same issues, different issues. It
Just
does
this
seem
one
on the
school have.
yeah, it does
Right.
seem on the SEN group a lot of people are saying about anxiety with children, can't get them in, blah blah blah. So I think there is a genuine issue there, even though that hasn't come from them. So when I kind of then imagined these 30 kids on screen or whatever, and with this TA, no, it's one to one. So I said, oh, is that all subjects then? No, it's whatever the child can do. So it could just be an hour or so a week. And I thought, that's not what the child can do. That's what you can do. Especially as you're fitting in multiple children one-to-one basis. There's not enough hours, is there, in the week? So rather than sort of saying, oh, there's 1 to 2 hours per child and we sort you out a definite time or day. No. And even this, it's just in the air like everything else. There's no date or look, the 1st of November we all start, or it's just an offer that isn't really an offer because it never materializes.
Yeah. And the fact is, she should have suitable full-time alternative provision. That's what she's entitled to.
Yeah.
So, did we have a conversation about what alternative provisions there are local to you when we spoke last time?
No, we just mainly sort of how to get the ball rolling.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I know you feel like you haven't done very much, but you have. You've moved it. Like you've got a
Yeah.
doctor's letter and you've got school to evidence that they're not going to do what they say they're going to do. Like,
Yeah.
it's a pretty good start. I mean, it's just frustrating as hell, but you have moved the dial for sure. How is Maya?
She's pretty much the same. There is sort of no great sort of budge with her. Yeah, she always seems tired, doesn't want to go out. Her eating is quite restricted, and then she'll make the food she does eat. But it's all kind of like pot noodle, very bland.
Safe food.
When
Yeah.
no one's looking, no one's cooking or making their own foods. So I just offer very relaxed, so she doesn't feel like she's left out. But very rarely, maybe if it's a chip or something, she'll say yes, but otherwise it's a no. Which is fine. She can, do her thing, but I just sort of worry that she is becoming quite agoraphobic.
Yeah.
And that was another thing the school kept saying, oh, I wouldn't worry about GCSEs. She can do them at college. And I thought, at this rate, she isn't even going to be able to step foot in college, because it
Yeah.
will be just so embedded in her to be at home. I mean, even now she's thinking, oh, she can get a job just purely online. Well, I mean, obviously you could, but not really without much sort of skills or education or something. It's not going to sort of come. I mean, if she prefers a job at home, then fine. But yeah, I haven't really burst her bubble that actually you're going to have to step foot out sometime.
Yeah, but it sounds like she's just not ready for that yet.
Yeah.
So, it's I was on a call with PDA Society this morning because we're doing a training for them next week. And we were talking about burnout recovery. And I was saying, I said, it isn't statistically proven, but I think it's generally accepted that whatever length of time the burnout is, the recovery is twice as long, or the same amount of time again. So if a child's been
Yeah.
like unable to leave their room for, say, 6 months, it's going to take another 6 months from when they start to recover for them to recover. And one of the trainers from the PDA Society said, I think it's the same amount of time and half again. So it's a long process. And you do right, like she needs like low arousal, like as much regulation as she can get. Like if she only eats pot noodles for the next 3 months, she only eats pot noodles for the next 3 months,
Yeah.
Like it's
Yeah.
far from ideal, but it's not, you know,
Yeah.
she's
Yeah.
eating something.
Yeah.
And I'm not a dietitian, so that's not medical advice, but you know what I mean, though, don't you? It's
Yeah.
and so Theo didn't leave his bedroom. God, how long was it? I want to say I didn't leave the house on his own for well over 12 months. And I think he didn't leave his room for probably 6 months. I mean, occasionally, but like was pretty much in his room that whole time. And I was really, you get this thing where you just like, oh my God. And I know it's different for everybody, but once the support was in place and he was in recovery, the improvement was quite quick. And like, so now if I tell you, so he was 19 this weekend. He crashed out of school just before his 16th birthday. So he finished his GCSEs in a PRU, so alternative provision. And then he had a year of EOTAS, which was like really gentle, low demand, like building up his confidence, helping him to do things like leave the house, that kind of stuff, and had some online learning alongside that. Well, yesterday, he got a train to Leeds on his own with his friend. They went to an escape room. They went for food. And then him and 3 of his friends got a bus back from Wakefield to Leeds, from Leeds to Wakefield, which is like an hour on the bus. It's only 20 minutes in the car, but it stops at every stop. And then they stayed over last night and they had Chinese food and they walked the dogs. I didn't stay. I went to my boyfriend. So he had the house, so like he's back on track of inverted commas, regular teenage stuff.
Yeah.
And I thought, like you, like, we'll never get through this. Do you know what I mean? So I'm not saying don't worry, it's going to be all okay. Don't worry, it's going to all be okay. But you know what I mean? It's just like, I'm just trying to illustrate that it is possible. Like, and I was really concerned because at one point he could go out the front door, get in the car. That was about it.
Yeah.
Couldn't go anywhere on his own. Would never have entertained getting on a bus, like at all, even if he had someone with him. And still finds things really tricky. He still can't go in a shop really that he doesn't know on his own, and but yeah,
Yeah. Great improvement though.
huge. And I think it's really difficult when we're in the middle of it to be able to see how, like, things will be different. I can't tell you how they'll be different, but they will be different to what you've got now, because you
Yeah.
are moving things. Like, even if they're not different from Maya straight away, what's going on around her will change. The
Hmm.
conversations you're having will change. Because you are like pushing.
Yeah.
Do you think that she's ready for anything? Like, what kind of a feel do you get there?
In terms of work, or
Yeah,
yeah,
work or people, or like, where do you think she's at with that?
um, people she has very low tolerance for. Was one of we saw school nurse in the summer holidays, and they kind of connected to something that's called the Bay Tree, which is um, a charity that is for 14 plus female, and the presentation would be very similar, anxious, and they do like a little kind of social group one evening a week. And they also have a side where they do academic side, which they're also offering her an hour of mentoring. So the social group, she said no, she couldn't go, couldn't actually get there. um, then kind of really sort of reinforced with me, it's people that kind of feel like you, it's not just a youth group or something. No, I wouldn't be able to cope with it. That was just completely, yeah, off the cards. The mentoring she's accepted, but only online, again, not to get there. So I'm trying to kind of support that she's a bit engaged with them, because they seem to be very understanding and not pushy. Uh, the other things, I think she had to look up um, things that the nurse kind of gave her. So they were the ones that have referred her for an ASD assessment for Lambeth, but it's likely to be rejected just simply because that's not our borough.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a bit unfortunate because I'd have rather it come from them. But the GP has backed it up with a Croydon referral.
Okay.
Um, so she said one or the other will get there first. Evidently, the other doesn't know the other is referred. So it just take which comes first, which is likely to be Croydon because it's as little as 5 or 6 months, which I felt a little bit of a cause for concern because I think nationally it's usually a
4 years.
year minimum, isn't it? And up to 3 or 4 in some places, yeah. So why it was only 5 months there, obviously people don't go or something, I don't know. But it looked like just after Christmas she could potentially get called up. So
Okay.
I thought, well, it's the situation is getting desperate, and if the Lambeth one is likely to sort of bounce back, then we are then starting again. So I just thought I'd be on somebody's list, and take whatever we kind of get. I'm trying to put some money aside to get private, but again, I don't even know where to kind of look. If I'm paying privately, I don't want to just pay anyone, and I would like someone that has experience with female autism,
Yeah.
because that is really how she presents. She doesn't have a kind of male profile, where my little girl is opposite. She's
Yeah.
quite obvious, um,
Yeah.
but Mia can make eye contact and smile.
Yeah.
Though funny enough, her social skills are a lot less than her sister, though. But um, yeah, she struggles to string a conversation, I think. Unless it's of a topic, then she'll be able to hold the conversation. But if it's just sort of social chit chat and how are you, not at all.
Yeah. That's kind of autistic communication style as well, though. Like, parallel monologuing rather than two-way conversations is how we tend
Yeah,
to do it, unless we've had lots of practice. Um, and it could be that her anxiety combined with her autism is meaning that she's experiencing some situational mutism as well. So it might be that she actually finds it physically difficult to speak. So
Yeah.
it's probably quite a bit going on in there for her. When we spoke last time, did we talk about raising a wild child?
Yeah, and actually I did get in touch, but I didn't hear back. So I'm going to follow up. I emailed them. So I'm going to re-email them.
Okay, cool. Because I think it would be good to have to reach out to Susan. I'm thinking if Baytree, so the way that Theo's engagement kind of, and it's different for every kid, but she just sounds like she's got a similar presentation to what Theo had, where it was the anxiety that was presenting firstly, and then the other like realizations fell into place after, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So his engagement was all online to start with. He had he did Lord Foxy, which was Dungeons and Dragons. He did one-to-one tutoring with Gecko online. His OT was always online. His psychotherapist has always been online. And the only thing he was out for during the whole time was Scouts, and that is the only thing that he kept from before. So everything else had fallen away, but Scouts was still on the cards. It was the only thing he did for ages. It wasn't on a screen. But then when we started working with his mentor, Carol, who was actually someone who was known to us so before, she was a family friend and she became his learning support mentor. That started to grow so she could get him, initially she was doing everything with him in the house, but then she was able to she took him out for dog walks and stuff. And then, so that is not an uncommon pattern, is that the engagement starts with online engagement. And if she's able to do that, then take what you can get, I guess. And
yeah,
I think when you're thinking about alternative provision, it might be worth, as a next step, starting off with the local offer. Basically look on the website for the local offer, look at alternative provision and see what there is that looks like decent quality online. It might be that it's worth reaching out to, for example, Gecko Community. They're based in Bristol, but they work online and they work remotely across the UK. See whether they might have anyone.
Is that GECO?
GECKO, Gecko Community CIC. So they've got a couple of different things. And I'm thinking that you could perhaps make a case for school providing it as an alternative provision package. So they do a thing called, oh my God, what is it called? It's all one-on-one with a tutor. All of their tutors are neurodivergent. And it's great. It's good. It's low arousal. They've got a tutor called Kim, who tends to work, I think, more with younger children. But Kim's stuff is all play-based, game-based, art-based, nothing kind of academic, I guess. But they do also have academic-based tutors. Theo did quite a lot of work with Piers, who does more tech stuff. He also did some work with Anna Lee, was that her name? She runs a thing called the Lift Off program, which is basically like an interactive, sort of like a choose your own adventure type game thing, but there's different things during it. So you're working with the tutor. She wasn't on screen. Theo never saw her face because that was his choice. She didn't see his face. She just heard his voice, and vice versa. And then they'd go into a room and they'd be like, oh, we're in the armory. What do you want to look at? And he'd be like, oh, let's look at these shields. And they'd be like unraveling clues to something. But then during that, she'd be like, oh, shall we write a letter to the king? And then they'd get role play. And it was a nice way for him to start building trust in another adult again.
Yeah.
So I would maybe have a chat with Gecko and see what they have in terms of capacity, and then go back to school and say, I found this alternative provision online. I'd like you to consider funding it whilst we're getting everything else in place. But in the meantime, also trigger the complaint with the council, because then the council will almost certainly go back to school and say, you need to be making alternative provision. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah.
Even though it's the local authority's responsibility, they often push it back on the school. But the letter that I'll send you is a formal complaint to the local authority saying, my kids missed 15 days. Why aren't you making formal alternative provision? Because that will then get you kind of to the top of the pile, because they'll go, oh my God, formal complaint. What's going on? Where are we at? So, yeah.
And I can do that even though she crosses borough, because I doubt even Croydon have probably had whiff of her being off yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they should. They should know if the school are reporting properly, but most schools don't report properly. And my concern at the moment is if they're not authorizing absences and you're getting these daily emails, one of the things that some schools do, and I don't want you to freak out, but I'll tell you because it's important to know that it's a thing that some schools do. Schools have head teachers have discretion as to whether they pursue parents for non-attendance, and it's always the head teacher's choice. But sometimes school will wait until there's a period of extended unauthorized absence, and then they'll trigger action against parents. So then they'll go to the LA and say, this kid hasn't been in school. You know, we've tried this, and this, and they're still not in school. We need you to issue a warning or a fixed penalty. It won't go to that because you've got good evidence in place already.
Yeah.
But just to flag that could be something that potentially they may do. And that's a conversation to have with other parents who are also having difficulties with attendance in the school, to see what the process tends to be, because they tend to follow the same process for all families. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But I think definitely don't wait till February. It's rubbish that you have to wait till February. It's not true. My next step would be to say to the Senko, we need an EHC needs assessment and we need it now. Are you going to do it or am I going to do it? And if he makes any noises about, just do it. And I can send you the bits for how to do it as well. It's very straightforward. The letter basically to the LA saying, and you could even do it so that your complaint and your request for a needs assessment and arrives on the same day. Do it as separate letters, but you can say in your complaint letter, I have made a request for an EHC needs assessment.
Okay. And at the same time, I could ask when this speech and language EP appointment is expected.
Yeah, definitely ask that of the Senko. It might be worth, because you haven't had any contact with the SEN team at Croydon for.
No.
Okay. It might be worth putting a call into them and let them know that there's a parental request potentially on its way. Maybe ask for an email address that you can start copying them into correspondence.
Okay.
Because if you're having things with the Senko, it could be helpful to just make sure that someone at the LA is copied in. They probably have a generic email address you can use, or even just say, if I make a parental request for an EHC needs assessment, who would be allocated to me so that I can start copying them into correspondence. Oh, I might have lost you. I lost you.
And would I be able to apply for like an OTAS package, or she has to have an EHCP for that?
So you need an EHCP to secure a formal EOTAS arrangement. Your step between now and then is going to be alternative provision. So, but what we can do is we can have a conversation about how we use whatever alternative provision we've got in place to evidence that she needs EOTAS. But yeah, you're not going to, the EHCP is the first step. I mean, the fact that you've got a GP that said she's not fit for school is a good start. You'll get pushback. You'll get them saying a GP can't say that. You might even get them going back to your GP and and challenging them on it. Like I've seen that happen as well before. Don't give them permission to contact the GP.
Okay.
Say, if you need things from the GP, come through me, I'll get it for you. Because
she did at the end of the letter give them permission to contact if there's anything else. I mean, I doubt they would. I think really deep down they want me to just go away, stay quiet, head down. She's year 11 and out their way.
The thing they're underestimating though is that she is year 11, but if she has an EHCP, that EHCP will follow her until she's 23 or until she has either GCSEs or post 16 like completed, depending on what her needs are identified as. But you know, as a child where she is currently, she should be in full-time educational training until she's 18. She's got special educational needs. She's potentially going to miss out on GCSEs at this time. They're not going to get away with hoping that you just go away, because they've got at least 2 years that they should be making provision for her. Probably longer. Yeah. Remind me when her birthday is.
So she'll be 15 in December.
Okay. So
yeah, she's just started year 10.
So she's just, right, so she's year... Okay, cool. So this would be her GCSE year. And then, is that right? And then
next year summer.
No, next year will be a GCSE year.
Yeah.
But she wouldn't turn 18 until halfway through or a good chunk into, doesn't really matter. She's not going to turn 18 before the second year of college, September, is she?
No.
Because that's the only thing that can be tricky, is if you've got a child who's an early September birthday, they can cease the EHCP and you miss out on that second year of provision if she's a year behind. But you're not going to have that because she won't be 19. She's
earlier. 7th of December.
Yeah, okay, cool. So potentially she could be in a similar situation to what Theo has been in, where everything gets delayed by a year.
Yeah.
Which, you know, it's not the end of the world. And I think the key is now that we need to work out what this next step is. What's that going to look like for her that is going to be the right kind of support for her whilst you are working on the EHCP? That's the gap we've got currently, isn't it? So I'd go and have a look at the local offer, look under alternative provision on the website for, I'd look at both boroughs. Because you can make a case for out of area because she is already out of area. So look at Croydon and, is it Lambeth? Go to their website, look at local offer and look at alternative provision. And what you want to be looking for is what kind of alternative provisions are going to be a good fit for her. So perhaps it's either interest-led or it's online, and just see what there is. So that when you have the conversation with the local authority, you can be like, oh, I've seen this. And if there isn't anything on the local offer, you can then go, and I've spoken to Gecko or I've spoken to Raising a Wild Child, and this is what I think we need for her. And that would be an informal EOTAS arrangement whilst you're working on her EHCP.
Okay, thank you.
But we can dig into it as we're going backwards and forwards. And now I've got your number and you're on the package with NeuroCurious, where you get that WhatsApp support. So after we finish, I'll send you a text message, and basically what we do is Kate and I open our WhatsApp on Tuesdays for those people who have got that package. But if stuff comes up in between, just WhatsApp me and I'll, you know, and I'll make sure you've got what you need, because I don't want you to have to wait a week in between contact.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. And I mean, I've worked with people with ASD all my life, quite strangely enough, but it's very different in the home than like at schools and things. But I think from what I read, she does present with a PDA profile in preference to just the sort of typical autism. So are all like psychologists trained to see that or not? Okay.
If you're
so I have to flag that up then?
Yeah, if you're seeing demand avoidant behaviours, which are, I mean, some of what you're describing, I mean, the fact that she's not able to go to school is demand avoidance in and of itself. but the eating would certainly indicate some demand avoidance, the unable to being able to leave the house. You might also see things like, I don't remember if we spoke about this last time. What's her, does she swing? Do her moods swing?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a
Um,
PDA trait. Like very quickly heightens, gets very angry or agitated, but quite quickly calms down.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a PDA trait. In
And
terms
especially if
of,
you ask her something, not necessarily even anything to do, just ask her a question. Hey, and you don't give me any time, and
yeah,
and then and then it could switch to, oh yeah, I love you, mum, I love you, grand.
oh bless her. And do you get when you ask for something, do you get in a minute, or I'll just, or after this, or I'm doing this, or like,
Yeah.
yeah. And do you get quite often, not always, quite often with PDA kids, you'll get like social cheats for demand avoidance. They'll be like, I can't do that because, and sometimes they're quite like far out things like, I can't do that because both of my legs are broken. And then they're like act out having broken legs. Or I'm a cat.
Yeah.
You sometimes get that. You also get very, and it's different for everyone, but you also get like really imaginative thinking, almost like fantasy thinking, like, or really intense interest in things that are not necessarily reality based. So a lot of kids who are socialized as female will have like really intense interest in particular book series. So Harry Potter's a very common one, or like Twilight, or do you know what I mean? Like kind of like vampires, witches, the occult, that kind of
She's
stuff.
a Harry Potter fan, and every week the whole series over and over, watching it again.
Yeah.
But when she was little, maybe sort of 6, um I, now I think, oh, you were obsessed, but at the time I just thought, oh, that's nice. She was almost Matilda herself, the red the red
Like that
bow,
too. Theo was
and
exactly like that.
reel off the kind of whole lines of the film and things like that. And I look back now and I think, no, that's like you're a bit like your obsession of Harry Potter, except you're not acting out Harry Potter now. You're just, that was obviously more apt for her age, but it just was kind of a follow. And then she's quite obsessive about Crystal Palace Football Club. So I thought, oh, you've got a bit of a crush on the player, but I don't think it is. It's the game
Yeah.
and who plays well or not. Um, and then this would go on for hours per game, how
Yeah.
they've played, what's
Yeah.
right, what's wrong with it.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, there is certain things, and then she's obsessed with looking online at houses. I said, don't you want to be an estate agent? Maybe no, just how much they cost, what they look like. Um,
Similar
and
to Theo. Theo sends me houses on Rightmove. Look at this house, mum. And like gives you like a blow by blow account of, oh, look at this room. It looks like someone was murdered in this room. Look at this kitchen. Who would paint their bedroom that color? Look at the floor plan, mum. Oh, it's a nice big garden. Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
and then there'll be other things you can't engage her whatsoever. Well, I'm a bit like that myself. If I'm not engaged in something, I'm not engaged. But yeah, there's some things she just won't entertain at all. But what she's got a bit better now, but when she was sort of a bit sort of in a sort of like 11, 12, you say, oh, Mia, go and have a shower. you know no, and this could actually go on for a couple of days. I'm like, no, Mia, this is bad now. You need to have a wash. No, and then I decided then one day, and I noticed what I did then, that was the change. Bathrooms free. Change the wording, and she does. I
Yeah.
mean, now she just kind of goes of her own accord and don't kind of have to give her prompts. But I suppose before she kind of took it as I'm telling her what to do. Now I'm just telling her the bathrooms free.
Yeah. I had it explained to me because Theo isn't diagnosed PDA, but is definitely demand avoidant and probably PDA. And I probably am too. But it was described to me as, imagine that anytime anyone suggests anything that deviates from what you're currently doing, that someone is pressing a button and shouting, do this now. That's how PDA feels for PDAers. So it's like, it's that low demand. Like, there's some great stuff on the PDA website. There's some really good stuff on the PDA Society website. But it is that, like you say, it's shifting the language so that it's not like we're having this conversation at the moment with Theo because he's going to university and he wants to go and look at university campuses, even though we all agree, and he probably does as well, that he needs to be going to the campus that he's at now because he knows it, he's familiar with it, he's got friends there, it's 40 minutes from home, all of this. But he will not be told that he can't go and visit other campuses and go on open days. So we're all dragging our asses all over the country because that's the process that his demand avoidant brain needs to go through, because it has to be on his terms with his information when he's ready. And I said to him this morning, me and Chris were talking about it last night, and we both think that you should go to ask him. And he was like, well, that's not going to work because my PDA does not like that. So, I mean, the good thing is that he knows that about himself, but it can be helpful for our young people to understand that that's the processing that they're going through. Like, not to shame them for it, but just for them to know when you feel that sense of anxiety, when someone asks you to do something or asks you a question or demands a response, that's what's going on for you. And that's why you feel panicky and overwhelmed. But yeah, in terms of people understanding PDA, getting a diagnosis for PDA is quite tricky. In terms of how it's normally diagnosed, it will be autism with a PDA profile or with a demand avoidant profile. But the key for you is when you are speaking with people, you don't even need to say PDA. You can just say she does experience very high levels of demand avoidance, or her anxiety is triggered by the perception of demand, so that you can start to explain to people. And then you're going to, unfortunately, need to be the educator about what does work for her, what doesn't work for her. But working with people who understand that is going to be a really good jumping off point. And you can ask people, what do you know about autism? What do you know about demand avoidant profiles? What do you know about masking? But yeah, it is going to be, unfortunately, you that does the educating for everybody around you. But I think you're probably getting used to that now anyway, are you?
Well, yeah, but I am with my little one. Like, she was diagnosed, she's deaf and things, but she's got diagnosis of ADHD from 4. Not yet a diagnosis of ASD, but they suspect highly it will come next year when she goes back for her assessment. But all I get is this whole kind of, oh, is she naughty? Like, and no, that's not ADHD. And then the other one that's just quite irritating, actually. Oh, did you go private? Because she's really young to get a diagnosis of ADHD. And I said, no, it came from a 4-hour assessment by at least 8 different professionals, in the room and watching a video of her, and the pediatrician saying that in the whole 4 hours she presented as ADHD. And it's just people's sort of perception. And this is not even just Joe Blogs on the street. This is actually coming from professionals. I mean, this come from an OT, one of them I'm thinking of. And you think, no. And then it's actually belittling people that do pay for a diagnosis, because all they want to do is jump the queue, really. They don't want to, they're not paying for their certificates.
No, they want answers quicker. And
Yeah.
if they have the resources, then that makes sense to do. But there is this thing of, oh, you paid for a private diagnosis, so you basically told someone what to write in your assessment. That's not how that works.
Yeah.
Especially because a lot of people who do private assessments also work in the NHS. So it's like, so their assessment only counts when they're on NHS time, but when they're on their own time, you're going to discredit. Like, it's infuriating, really infuriating.
Yeah. Actually, if I do get there first to pay for a private one for Mia, can that be rejected on an EHCP that actually it was a private in preference to an NHS one?
It can't be, but it might be.
Okay.
So you might get a bit of pushback from the LA saying, well, it's a private diagnosis, to which you respond, yes, by a trained professional who followed the correct procedures for assessment. I mean, like, to kind of like waterproof you a little bit, and I think you know this already, you've still got a way to go ahead of you. There's potential that even if we get, well, when we get an EHC needs assessment, that they'll still try and name a mainstream. You might still have to appeal, but you know, I've been through this process. I've got you. So, if it goes to appeal, a judge is straight away going to go, "What, you're rejecting this just because it's a private assessment? Don't be ridiculous," and that will be the end of the conversation. But you know, I think part of it is from the get go, you let them know that you know what you're doing, and even
Yeah.
if you don't think you do know what you're doing, fake it and we'll fill in the gaps. Do you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
just let them know you're not going to be messed about, basically. You don't need to be rude. You don't need to be pushy. You don't have to say things in meetings if you don't feel comfortable. You can always follow it up with an email. I always find it really difficult to say something in the moment. Like you were saying, oh, I didn't want to pull her up on it. Like, I'm always like that. But then afterwards, you send an email and say, I didn't feel comfortable saying this in the meeting, but, or, you know, I've had some time to reflect. And so,
Yeah.
you know, it's, and I think one thing to bear in mind is just to make sure that you've got a good paper trail for everything going forward, because it sounds like there might be a bit of to and fro between the LA and school. School saying we've not tried everything yet, LA saying you need to go back to school, but ultimately we've hit the 15 days and they have a legal responsibility to make alternative provision, and in the meantime we need to be looking at an EHCP application.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I just find it hard as well while they're sitting there smiling to then really kind of lay a bit heavy on them.
Yeah, same. I
But
mean,
I also
I know
thought
it's
as
hard to
three of them were
believe, but I do find it quite difficult to be confrontational or even assertive in face to face, unless I'm doing it for someone else, and then I can tear people new ones. But yeah, I do find it really tricky, and I think that's an element of, regardless of if your neurotype, we all mask and we don't want to be impolite, and
Mm.
you know, we don't like conflict as a rule. So you know, and they're all like, yeah, and you don't want to go, oh, I can tell that you're full of shit.
This is it. But it was convincing shit though. I thought, oh, actually, they're really trying now when they're offering this online thing and the work. And then, oh yes, we need a SALT assessment, and she's writing it in her notebook. And then, kind of just this one piece of work turned up that wasn't even worth their £7 of recorded delivery. I thought I was giving them time to arrange it. I knew they weren't going to do that overnight. And then a telephone call, can you come and pick it up? You know, yeah, it was just a bit, I saw it and then it had their thing on. And I thought, this has got to be work for, for her. Then she opened it and then, oh, it's English. I said, just English. Thought they were meant to be sending something across the board. So, and then I kind of thought after last week's debacle that there might be an email saying things didn't go so well. Still kept quiet. So I suppose I have to actually message anyway. I won't even mention that. I'm just going to say, oh, is it online or my phone this week? Kind of open up a conversation and then go for the kill.
Yeah.
About the EHCP and that for them.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, it might be that you end up having to throw a complaint at school as well, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Like the next step is to start the ball rolling on an EHC needs assessment request and make that complaint. And I will send you an email with the links to the templates so you've got them.
That's great. Thank you.
And I'll also send you a WhatsApp message that you've got us for Tuesdays. But if stuff crops up in the meantime, just drop into my WhatsApp.
Okay, no, that's
As far as
great.
I'm concerned, between now and Christmas, just message me.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you very much.
All right, my love. Okay.
Thanks.
Well, I will see you soon, but
Yeah,
just holler if anything crops up, yeah?
that's brilliant. Thank you
All
so
right.
much.
Speak to
Take
you
care.
soon. Take care, Kate.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.